Go. We're recording to the cloud. I'm Jonah Lacqua. I'm Executive Director of the History Project, and it is my pleasure to introduce you tonight to tonight's event. From the Bluegrass to Beantown, C.D. Collins on the Kentucky-Massachusetts connection. Before we turn it over to our friends from the Faulkner Morgan and to C.D. herself, I just want to tell you a bit about the History Project. We're Boston's LGBTQ community archives. We document, preserve, and share LGBTQ in the greater Boston area and regionally here in New England. And we are a volunteer-driven 501c3 organization that is basically supported by the community. And so I want to say thank you actually to everyone who donated as part of tonight's event. And if you're interested in supporting us and Faulkner Morgan, we'll put the links in the chat so you know where to find us. Pride Month is coming, so we have a lot that's going to be going on in the gay community anyway. But in particular, before Pride Month, I'd like to invite you to our event next week with Speak Out, and Ellen from Speak Out is here. So I won't forget to mention it. But we're doing a storytelling event called When I Knew, the Coming Out Eureka Moment, where some speakers will share their story of coming out, or a story of coming out, or their continual story of coming out. And you can register for that on the same Eventbrite that was tonight's event. So the only other things I was going to say, just sort of in terms of housekeeping, John and I are going to interview CD. We have some questions. Before that, CD is going to perform a piece for us. And then we'll have some time for you all to chime in and ask questions and interact. And I think that's the whole rundown. We are recording. If you don't want your face to be on the recording, but you want to ask a question, feel free to use the chat and one of us will read it out loud. And I think that's everything. I didn't include my intro cheat sheet today, so hopefully I'm not missing anything big, but we'll remind you later on if I am. And with that, I am so pleased to turn this over to John Coleman from Faulkner Morgan, the LGBT Community Archives of Kentucky.
Thank you, Joan. It's such a pleasure to join you all tonight. It was great that we were able to sort of link up in this way. Some of the pandemic inspired creativity at work. As Joan said, I'm John Coleman. I'm a historian here in Kentucky, and I'm the president and the co-founder of the Faulkner Morgan Archive. We're a 501c3 with a mission to collect, preserve, and promote the LGBTQ history of Kentucky. We're fairly new. We started in 2014, but we house about 15,000 items, around 250 hours of oral histories, all with a direct tie to Kentucky's LGBTQ community. So we're honored to get to share such an important part of the nation's story of LGBTQ Americans. And C.D. Collins is one of those collections in the Faulkner Morgan Archive. And it's my honor to get to introduce her tonight. C.D. is a writer, a spoken word artist, a singer, a songwriter, a troublemaker, and I would say a healer. She has a long list of accolades and praise, which I will not repeat here for brevity and for the sake of CD's modesty, but certainly do check out her website. Her list of work is impressive. And I knew CD before I ever knew CD. Her work and her activism long preceded her physical entree into my life and to my own work. And I'm happy to say we were able to house her papers in the FLMA. CD, I think, is someone who is at home in the world, and she writes a lot about home. In fact, I want to do a quick little quote. She once wrote, "As a transplanted Southerner, I am keenly aware of cultural intersection and divide. My work, Kentucky Stories, dealt with the concept of home. What comprises physical, psychological, and spiritual home. Residing in her Mount Sterling home and in Boston, CD no doubt will talk a lot about home tonight. So please join me as we welcome C.D. Collins, who'll be beginning our time together this evening, reciting a piece of her work, At the Retreat. C.D., take it away.
I'm not going to tell you how I got my scars right now, because if I do, I'll have an episode in the middle of the night and you won't be there. All my life, people have told me how lucky I am. So lucky it didn't get your face. When I got my scars, I lost my value, which came from my parents. They were my mirror where I looked for my reflection to see if I was loved, if I belonged. This mirror had always been multifaceted, a disco ball, light coruscating from it as it spun, fragments falling everywhere. When I was burned, over 50% of my body, I lost the only thing I'd ever had to offer, a female body that would summon a man. They thought I'd never marry, and they were right about that. I never thought myself good looking. My glamorous mother took up all the room for that. Everything beautiful was for my mother. I wanted to be of use to justify my life. I've had many jobs: factory worker, lawnmower, massage therapist, a writer of tales, a singer of songs. But when I had a breakdown, I could do nothing. A friend told me that in her doctor's practice in Kentucky, her patient's primary complaint was, "I've lost use of myself." That about sums it up. During that breakdown, I woke to a single moment of peace before the meteorite of dread flew from the sky through my window and cratered into my chest. Dread buzzed behind my eyes, saturated my consciousness, swirled in my solar plexus. I preferred my dream world to the waking world, even if sleep brought nightmares. I couldn't think, couldn't eat. I walked to my friend's house and swept snow from her car, to another friend's house to fold her laundry. I put books in alphabetical order at the library. Anything. I found a center run by other people with psychiatric diagnoses. The director suggested that I apply to the program she'd done. I thought I wouldn't even pass the interview, but I was invited to enroll in the school of what I call crazy people helping other crazy people, because we're the ones who truly understand. Our class went on a retreat. I begged not to have a roommate, but they assigned me a room with Jivka. Jivka was Hungarian. Jivka had scars. It got Jivka's face. The first night I dreamed she was coming toward me. It felt so real, with the same twin beds and night table, the warm room and shuttered windows overlooking the courtyard with the fountain, the dusty pink facade. In the dream, I rolled to get away. I was ashamed that my dream let me know that her scars frightened me. That night in our room, Jivka said to me, "I heard you talking about your life today, and I thought, I don't see a single scar on that woman." "Do you want to see?" I asked. Slowly, I removed my pajamas. She took off her t-shirt. Her chest looked as though something had melted. I could see drip marks. Her boyfriend had read her journal about an affair with a woman and packed his bags. "I set myself on fire," she said. We put our pajamas back on and puff on our vapes. Hazelnut tobacco, unicorn milk. Over the next few days, I noticed her style, her soft, breathy voice, hardly audible because she'd swallowed flames. I began to appreciate the delicacy of her fingers without fingernails, the complexity of her features, her eye for fashion. She became beautiful. The next few nights, we slept peacefully, each in our own twin bed in the warm room. I tell her she has beautiful lips. "They're tattoos," she says. On our last morning, I wakened to see her in the half-light, kneeling over her suitcase. Without her wig, her scalp is pale, with corrugated scars and patches of hair. "It's 7:20, hun," she says. Our meeting is at 8:30. Quietly, we get ready. I retrieve my earrings that I got that time in Puerto Rico, emeralds, pale green and full of light. I see Jifka in the mirror behind me. I put on my earrings. Jifka puts on her ears.
Thank you, CD. I know it's Zoom. We're all making clapping motions, and you can't actually hear any of us. Thank you so much for performing that piece and for sharing it with us. What a treat. Thank you.
And I want to tell a story about John.
Okay, go.
So the first time, I think it was the first time I met John, and I went over to the fabulous house, the Helm House, is that what it's called? And my book of short stories was lying on the side table, which endeared him to me. And then he'd made lemonade, and he'd put out spice drops, which are the candy that we fought about as kids. And it was in my first story. I mean, what a guy, right? What a touch. Thank you, John. Go ahead, Joan, if you want to know anything.
I was waiting to see if John was going to unmute. Spice drops are one of my favorite candies, and I'm not just trying to suck up to you. But so we're going to sort of transition into this interview. We have our little list of questions, sort of straddling Kentucky and Massachusetts, and connecting you and our two queer archives across the country. And so the very first question is just completely background. If you could tell us, where did you grow up? For those of us who aren't familiar, could you tell us about where you grew up?
Well, that's an overstatement, the whole growing up thing. But let's just say I was born in Mount Sterling, Kentucky, and I did some traveling around, but then I ended up going to UK and graduating undergraduate and graduate school at UK. And Wendell Berry was my teacher, and he gave me an F. And what sex are these people? I don't know who you're talking about. So he got me writing clearly. And then he said I was his most improved student. And I was like, he just scared me. And I did what he told me to do. So I went to UK, and then I started teaching at my alma mater, at the high school, my alma mater, which was wonderful and horrifying because there was a picture of me in the hallway with it was summertime, and they take the picture. My hair was green, from the chlorine. And they give you these like stiff velvet things, and then they break your neck. That was in the hallway. I had to look at that the whole time. And then my girlfriend wanted to go to the museum school, and she was going to either go to New York or Boston. And I thought, I want to go, and I want to take a year's leave of absence, and I'm going to go. And I want to go right. And, it's in Kentucky, in Lexington, it was not easy for me to enter the literary world there. I needed to go away from home. And I think that is not unusual. And so I packed my red goblets and my blue goblets, my depression wear, and my cats, and I went to Boston. And we got mugged like the first night.
Oh, really?
My friend who drove
about two Kentucky girls, huh?
We were walking, like Kentucky walking, and somebody came out of the fens with a box cutter and cut her purse string. And she was a waiter, so she had like a lot of money in there. and we had just bought our TV and our microwave and everything, and she ran after him, rednecks that we are, which you're not supposed to do, and fell, and like not on a sanitary surface, sliding around. So we had to go to the hospital. Anyway, and my friend's car got stolen, who drove us up there. Welcome to Boston. We didn't know the Boston rules. We didn't know. We found out. We got a crash course.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
The piece you started out with, I had not heard before, and that was really amazing. And I think it, with a lot of your backstory, including your scars, that overall sort of, I wanted to be of use, that clicked right away. Talk a little bit about how were you of use in Kentucky? You sort of briefly skipped over Moorhead, UK. Could you talk a little bit, about the activism you were involved in, in the late 60s, early 70s here in Kentucky?
Well, we thought we had, I joined a women's collective, and we thought that we were really doing something. And turns out we were. We were having women's consciousness raising groups in the collective in Lexington at 472 West 2nd Street in Lexington. And we brought in women that were battered women to help them. We thought we could do everything. We taught each other how to develop pictures, how to change the oil, which I'm not interested in doing anymore. But we had a vision of life, and we really fine-tuned it. And we were far more radical than I am now. We were far more radical. I mean, all of that is in me, but I don't live that out constantly like I was doing then. And it was a beautiful scene there in that area of town. I think we called it the living room at the time, and it was a mixed gay bar. And I still love that. Everybody went. It wasn't a men's bar. It wasn't a women's bar. And it was so mixed. And I went like every night. And I think it was like hot pants and hiking boots. I haven't changed very much, but we really, the people in that women's collective had high ideas about what we were going to do. And our imagination was, we were, a tidal wave. And I think what ended up being true is that we were rivers. And so the people in that collective, the women in that collective, have all gone on to do things that I'm really proud of and inspired by. So I did that, and I don't know how I stumbled into these things. Like, for example, when I started working with musicians in Boston, I just got fortunate, to be included in these things. There were some people who had been working. This is a slightly different subject, but the first time I worked with musicians with spoken word, my car had broken down. I was going to Maine with Babette, and our car broke down in Boston at 5:00 on Friday. And some people came up to help us. These two guys came up, and they poured gasoline in the carburetor and set the car on fire. And so, thank you. So we had to be in Boston for the weekend, and we went to Man Ray, Campus Man Ray, and there was a all-female band with like 10 women, and it changed my life. I was like, is this possible? And they were, I was like, we have to move here. It was like that. And so Babette got into the museum school. We went there. I went to Harvard to find a mentor, and also taught at Simmons, English as a second language. poor little MBA students sounded just like me, who were Japanese and from Western Europe, with going to Harvard and Boston University with Southern accents. But then I became a massage therapist. I started massaging a woman who was in that band that I had first seen. And then I ended up we started a new band that I was in, and Tracy Whitley was there the whole time. So that was amazing. Now talk about some serendipity, that I got to be so in awe of these women, and then I get to be in a band with them, and I get to be the front person. So, but then you know what lesbians do, right? They have children. So I was like, we'd go to rehearsal and there'd be like children. I was like, give me some straight people that aren't going to have children. And so then I changed, you know, my band changed. My band is called Rockabilly. And somebody here, Hodari Fenderson, is guitar player with me. We made a couple of albums together. He's fantastic, Berkeley grad. Glad to see him here.
Yeah, so Tracy had mentioned in the chat, clearly the universe wanted you to stay in Boston. Although, you know, if the signs you were getting were getting mugged, getting the car stolen, catching the car on fire, was that?
It was, you know, it was psychedelic, you know. I mean, we got stuck in Boston, and then we stayed at Babette's cousin's roommate's house, and she didn't want us there. But we were right there in Harvard Square. And so we got to do all that stuff. And then, you know, we ended up the next year, I think, moving there. But then we were, you know, when we got mugged, we had already moved there. You know, we put our, you know, we thought, well, we're definitely going to get at least 2 bedrooms, you know, and like a eat-in kitchen. And, you know, no, we had what were we thinking? We had no idea what the rent was going to be. We thought we were going to tell them what the rent was. So we had a little studio. No, it was a 1 bedroom in the Fenway, which is a really dangerous place. And at that time, and the realtor didn't tell us that. So that surprised us too. There were a lot of surprises.
And so I'm sort of looking at our list of questions and thinking about, because you, John, and I have talked a few times leading up to this, and beyond the violence, I will say, and the cost of rent, which is still exorbitant in the Boston area. It's like, it's wild. You know, what'd you find when you got here? Did you have culture shock when you got here?
Well, oh God. Oh yeah. I mean, I thought everybody was going to be like John F. Kennedy, you know, and it was really racist. And I was really shocked by the culture of Boston and the segregation of Boston. And I'm also amazed by the opportunities in Boston. Like I said, I couldn't stay in Kentucky. The door was not open for me in Kentucky as a writer. I had to go to Boston. And the first week I was there, I went to Northeastern and I sat down with a woman who found me a job. She just called around and found me a job teaching at Simmons ESL. You know, people were really good to me. And my mentor at Harvard Extension, Pam Painter, she really encouraged me. And when I walked in her class and I opened my mouth, people got really quiet because they thought I wasn't going to be able to finish that sentence I started. And there's so much prejudice against the South and so much misunderstanding. And I didn't know I was Southern. I didn't know until I moved to Boston. And then I found out. And it's constant. It's still, people think it's really funny to mimic my accent, that they're really good at it. And have you ever heard anybody mimic a Southern accent and say something intelligent? No, they don't. They will mimic a British accent and say something intelligent. So there's just incredible prejudice. So here's how I'm going to fix that. I'm writing a book, and it's just going to be my gesture. I'm trying to be of use of essays, and I'm not sure what to title it yet. I want to. What I'm trying to do is, I was originally going to write it about my town. It was going to be called The Big Little Town, and then I thought, I can't tell the real stories with the real names. Only Trouble is interesting, and I can't tell the juicy stuff and use the names and not hurt people and get myself hurt. So I started fictionalizing things, and which is where I get to tell the truth. That's why I write fiction. And then I thought, I want to explain. I want to be an ambassador. I had to be an ambassador, and I want to collect stories of people in this area, because that is how people change. They get moved when they hear a story. This is the only way. It's got to be through art, because you're not going to talk anybody out of anything. But if you know someone, if you hear their story, you're going to feel it, and that's going to shift. It's going to shift your world. That's how my world gets shifted.
CD, you'd mentioned, of course, the opportunities open to you as a writer in Kentucky, especially as someone who was young. Obviously, folks like Wendell Berry had done a good job at it, but it was, older men. So doors of writing open to you, but also, what about your sexuality? I know you were a high school teacher. As a lesbian.
Oh man! Oh my God! It was so dangerous, John.
How was that different? What was that culture shock when you?
Okay, well,
the LGBT community in Boston.
Well, I was so far in the closet that I was in the closet to CD. That's how scary it is. And I've had my life threatened. I've lived alone. I've been bullied. I've been harassed. I've been threatened on the telephone. I've had somebody put sperm in my mailbox. What am I supposed to do with that? And my students thought I was having an affair with this friend of mine, and which I wasn't. They put a dildo in her Christmas wreath, tacky, egged her car. A lot of phone calls, hang up phone calls, and this wears on a person. And getting my life threatened was like I felt like my hair was going to turn white overnight. And so when I barely got out from teaching, I barely got out because I had a girlfriend at the time, and it was I was getting harassed by the black kids. More. They were more aggressive toward me. I don't know why. And, things being whispered, and the white kids too. And the worst of all were the lesbians. The nascent lesbians were terrifying. And
I think. Sorry, can everyone else hear you?
Can you not hear me anymore?
Oh, okay, we can hear you again now.
You broke up for 1 second.
Yeah.
Oh, for 1 second. Well, I said a curse word during that time, so that was good. The universe bleeped me out. So what I'm saying is that I was in this relationship, and that it was like I was going out dancing at the country, and I was, it was becoming. I had my girlfriend for a open house one night, and it was just incredible tension, and electricity got stirred up by that. And then, so I left, and I was teaching at Simmons, and I was standing in the, I was teaching adults. They were going to MBA. programs. And I thought, oh my God, nobody can out me here. I could out myself and not be fired. It was like 2 weeks after my second COVID shot. It was like such a relief. It was such just like fall on your knees relief. And I did not put this link on Facebook, to this event because it's too dangerous for me here. It's in my small hometown. It's too dangerous to be gay. And, there's an idea like, oh, everybody knows you're gay and everybody knows you live in a black house with the Hells Angels and everybody knows you sell drugs. It's all in the same vein. And I say, you don't know anything about me until I tell you. That's when you know. And that's how I protect my own dignity. Like, I'm a lesbian. What's that? Explain what that is. No, I'm actually not that. So it's very difficult. It's still difficult. And I say, you can go home again. You should have on leather pants and a leather jacket when you do. And a cigarette. A cigarette. You don't have to light it, but I recommend that you have a cigarette. Okay. What else?
So it's ruining the image, but I'm just imagining Olivia Newton-John at the end of Grease. And I don't think that that's probably the vibe that you're going for, but that's.
I didn't see Grease, but I love her. I should see Grease.
It's cute. It's
okay.
But so you had mentioned and one of our questions is, how did you become C.D. Collins?
Oh yeah, it was. Shall I tell you? Go ahead.
Yeah, no, please do.
Okay. I'm just heating up here, and my glasses are steaming up. There's a question in the chat. Yeah, yes, Tracy. Okay. So what happened was that I wrote a story with a male persona, and because I wanted to get it published, and I thought they would be. My name is so feminine. My mother really wanted a little girl. And she didn't get one. So I wrote it under C.D. Collins, and then I was asked to read, and people had read things I had published under C.D. Collins in a few literary journals. And I thought, that's a sex neutral name, and it's kind of a protection, so I can inhabit this persona. And for my readings, what I discovered was really helpful for me because I really have stage fright. And for example, when I was trying to get, what was I trying to get? I was trying to take my GREs, and I got stage fright and sick and left with the test. You're not supposed to do that. And, in my oral interpretation class, I had to go, horrible stage fright. And so what I would do, I could be C.D. Collins, and I would wear something like outrageous and then, shiny. And then I had to inhabit that and go into a performative bubble. And it was a protection for me. So that's how I became C.D. Collins. And I like C.D. Collins. She's all right.
Yeah, she's definitely a little more than all right. Could you talk a little bit about, having been out to your farm in Mount Sterling, Sherry? I know that the environment there is important to you. Could you talk just a little bit about your farm? Like, why are you in Mount Sterling right now? Like, why?
Yeah. I was waking up the pandemic. So yes, I put a down payment on this farm when I was 16 because I felt like I wanted to have a place that I could call my own that nobody was going to kick me out from. And then I paid on it until I was in my 20s. And it's 56 acres. It's the last farm on this road now. And what I want to do is respect the people who came before me, Shawnee, enslaved people, and and natural grasses, native flowers. I want to honor that. And the soil of Kentucky has been very exploited, not on purpose, but, for example, they call fescue Kentucky 31. It's an invasive grass and it hurts the cattle. And so now there's fescue eradication program, but all of, the local agricultural centers said, plant this fescue. We have, Richard Nixon's Secretary of Agriculture, Earl Butz, that's his name, Earl Butz, said everybody has to plant, get big or get out. You've got to plant fence to fence, and encouraged monocrops, took away any benefit of having a quilt farm, which is the kind of farm that you're supposed to have. And if you have monocrops, it's a dangerous thing for the environment, that the crops can fail. You have, 500 head of cattle and 10,000 cattle in a factory farm. It's a broken system. And so my little piece of it, and there's a farm behind me that is also 50 some acres, that's a meaningful habitat of edge property to have wildlife. And it's a really hard battle to, I've planted 100 pounds of native grasses and Forbes flowers, but it's very hard to fight back the Johnson grass and all those things. But and then try to make a little bit of a profit on my farm to pay my taxes, but I'm doing that. And it's an artist retreat. Yes, it's an artist retreat. The Savannah. It's called the Savannah. It's named after Savannah Mae, my cat.
Well,
Speaking of, you need to talk a little bit about that pipeline too.
Yeah, we got a second
pipeline, right, between Boston and Kentucky. You've established another.
Yes, we have an underground kitten pipeline. Helen R. there has one of those kittens, Carl Young. She named it, because she's very deep. And so Kentucky is number 50 in animal welfare. Oh yes, we're last. And so I call it Gilead, like in Handmaid's Tale. That's how the animals are. And so my project is get the cats out of Gilead to posh addresses in New England, which is like Canada. So it isn't like I have any means to do this. But there were some Jesus kittens born in the barn. I didn't even know that Devaney was pregnant, and cats dropped off at the mailbox. It's not a good situation. And so then I find people who want a kitten. And in Massachusetts right now, it's been hard to get a cat because of COVID. Everything is shut down. And what happens there is that everybody will fall in love with this one cat that the shelter puts up, and then it's gone. So I've got more cats. And then I put a seduction package in to different people with different spins, like come to stay at my Airbnb. I'll take you to the Amish subway. We will walk in the Red River Gorge, and then you'll take back 10 cats with you to deserving homes. It's the underground, get the cats out of Gilead. It's wonderful. It's so wonderful. Each time is a miracle. I'll beg someone, and the cats appear, and I realized one day I had 7 cats in my house, and I'm like, I'm turning the corner because I don't want to give up these cats. I have to get these cats out of Gilead. Look at that. And this cat came from Jeffersonville, Kentucky. Ray Landau. Yeah. That little blue cat came from Kentucky.
Adrian's cat that was on camera.
Yeah.
You've had some, we don't have any visitors with you right now, but you've had some really beautiful cats.
We have the prettiest cats. I don't know why in Kentucky, but they'll be dead before they're 2 unless you adopt them to your posh addresses. So
there we go. By coming to this event, if you're in Massachusetts, you're now part of the cat.
Yes, I highly recommend it. But it isn't like it's look at these cats came from Jeffersonville. So look at Martha Spitzeri, Jack Frost and Olivia Moon Pie. They're from Jeffersonville, Kentucky, Chick Town.
They both came from Kentucky.
They did. Jack Frost was like we should. What you got, Maxine? Hi, Maxine. Maxine, the queen. Yeah, Aunt Martha was going to adopt one of the angel band kittens that I found by the side of the road, and then I found Jack Frost, and he was like, "I'm feral. I'm going to eat you." He was like 8 weeks old. I'm like, "Here's your game changer." Now he's big and fat and looks like the chancellor. He's like Winston Churchill. Okay, I could go on about cats, and I should shut up, or I'll just keep on about the cat.
One of the benefits of us doing all of these digital events where we're in people's homes is that you get to meet the cats and the dogs. And
okay, wait a second. I had a child. Just a second.
And so.
Wait.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, come on. See, this is Jasper Sky, and he's not spoiled. Okay. All right. What else do you want to know?
So, aside from ferrying cats out of Kentucky, what have you been doing during COVID-19?
Well, okay. So I didn't want to drive down to Kentucky by myself, but I really wanted to. I live in a convent, and all right, it's an artist loft. It used to be a convent, and the nuns were like, "We are sick of all you kids." But there's a school, Chever School is right across the courtyard. They left, the building fell into disrepair, and they made it into artist lofts. And there's 9 units. But I live in a studio. It's a beautiful studio, but I live in a studio. And I was just scared because I'm smart and about this one thing, which is protect yourself from COVID. And so there was a woman there. I don't know what happened to her, but she wouldn't wear a mask, and she's a screamer and an aerosolizer. And so I kind of wanted to get away from her. So I found someone to drive down here with me in September, and I stayed here and started the Underground Kitten Railroad. That's one thing I did. I can't do that from Boston. And I'm working on a novel called The Creation of Silver. And I had the novel that I have now is the first half of this person's life, and the novel that I'm writing now is from age 34 on. So I'm writing that. I'm writing a book of essays, untitled essays. I want to get the perfect title. I'm hoping you guys can help me. Like Appalachian Reckoning is a good title, but it's taken. So, Night Comes to the Cumberlands. I want a good title. So, and it's a book of stories and lyric essays and a couple of rants, a collection that will be published when I finish writing it. Oh, and there's a film. Mm-hmm. Oh, John, tell us about the film.
Right. There is a forthcoming documentary on C.D. Collins and her many exploits coming from Media Working Group, directed by Jean Donahue. And so certainly be looking at the social media from the History Project and the Faulkner Morgan Archive for when that's going to be available. Speaking of group help, it's at 7:50, so let's definitely open it up to our guests here. What questions do you have?
Tracy says, may I share some pics of CD in Boston, Rooftop and Beacon Hill with Chris and me? Yes. Let's open it up. And yeah, I did read to you, Tracy, and I may read at the end a little bit. I read one piece. It was about you. That's really too bad that you missed it. Yeah, Helen, you can talk. Go ahead.
Well, I'm so sorry that I was late. I'm surrounded by people, but this was really fun. I have finals, so it's really good to just like have some type of recreation at this point. And this was beautiful. My comments about kind of like the violence of Black students specifically, that reminds me of like you know, when there's another person that is just as oppressed as you, especially, you know, like there's this like self-hatred that comes from being oppressed, therefore I'm gonna oppress other people that I believe are just as weird as me or just as outside as me. So that's kind of what I was getting at. And I've heard a lot of your stories just personally, like in our conversations about how the South treats people of color. And I think there's like definitely probably parallels, not necessarily the same, but kind of similarities of two oppressed groups. So I just wanted to like ask about that and what your thoughts are about that.
You know, Ellen, that's really good. It was so heartbreaking to me that it was people of color that were after me, and more intensely. Everybody was, but I think that you explained it very well, and it broke my heart. I felt like I knew why, but it was very painful to experience it. And I have had people come up to me and apologize for how they were to me in high school.
That's good. That means
yeah, and in tears. And so that meant everything to me.
Mm-hmm.
But it was one student said to me, you know, later, she said, you know, I didn't think it bothered you, you know, being harassed. And because I wasn't having a nervous breakdown, which I did, but I had to keep it together. I was trying to keep my job and I was trying to keep my sanity. And so there was no concept of how deeply this was affecting me, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what? That I was talking to a friend of mine about a girl who was kind of similar, where she's a white lady, but she doesn't understand that her actions and words can really hurt others or put others down. She's very into like social justice, and so she really doesn't think that she can put others down. And so one of the things that I noticed is that when people are harmful to another, it's usually because they literally don't understand that they're harmful. And
Yes.
it's disappointing. And I'm glad that people realized that they were harmful.
Yeah, it was very moving. It was like 20 years later. Tracy wanted to share a couple of pictures. You want to do that?
I have them pulled up.
Okay. And Tracy wanted to hear a particular piece, and I'm looking for it now.
Let's see. Joan, could I get a share screen?
Yeah, I think that you should be able to share now if you try.
Oh, okay, great. So here we have some photographs of CD. I can see Tracy there.
Tracy, look at you.
CD.
And
this was I'm going
Right
to jump
there.
in, John. This was CD's super cool apartment in Boston, Beacon Hill, up on the roof with a whole gaggle of lesbians. I'm not sure what our official group collective name should be, if we're gaggles or covens, or I'm not sure, but that was some cool chicks back in the day.
yeah, and
Early
Tracy,
90s.
yeah, and Tracy had her own float in the Pride Parade. She was on the Gertrude's truck showing her ass, dancing. I mean,
This is being recorded, CD.
oh, sorry. Oh, sorry, Governor Whitley. So
And you know you've made it when you are your own float.
okay, that's
It's
true.
not my own float. I was
Look
the
at
only
that.
one that
That
was
is
willing to get on it and dance.
And the woman, there's Babette. Let's see more of Babette. Scroll down so we can see the head of the woman in the red
In the
t-shirt
back.
in the back. The other way.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. So this woman, there's my best friend Babette right there. Look at Tracy. Look at her. Look at her, that pose. It's just like centerfold. And the woman in the lavender tank top is Sandy Zaragoza, and she was in my band, a fantastic bass player, and did a lot of the music for the band.
Yeah, and a summa cum laude graduate of Tufts Dental School and now a pediatric dentist.
Yeah.
Holla.
Ah,
Oh, Tracy and her, was that, I think that was a birthday party in the backyard. That might have been the year where several people came as me. If you want to really be like existentially electrified, have people show up as you and how they see you. But anyway, Tracy, you've just been gorgeous every single second of your life. How does that feel?
No, you're too kind. And I promise everybody this is not the Sherry Tracy show, but we had this incredible connection of having met in Boston 30 plus years ago. And then I had this incredible opportunity to come to Lexington, Kentucky. And I grew up in Raleigh. So I had the whole Southern experience that Sherry did, not quite Appalachia, but similar kind of experience of transitioning to the Northeast and having a accent that I had to drop in order to have people take me seriously, and coming out and having a life there, and then having an opportunity to go back to the South in a way that was incredibly meaningful. And I am now based in Lexington, Kentucky, and intend to retire here, which is only about 30 miles from my good friend, Ms. Sherry.
Yeah,
in Mount
that
Sterling.
is.
And I participate with the Faulkner Morgan Archive, and I did history in school in Boston. And so hopefully you all are not aggravated by us having a little repartee here, because it's all about this wonderful Boston and Kentucky conversation tonight. So just wanted to give you a little backdrop as to why we've got some insider hopefully enjoyable banter going on this evening.
Yes. Thank you so much.
yeah, it's great to see that relationship that has spanned decades now. And of course, Tracy is also one of our board members at the Faulkner Morgan Archive. So it's so great to see you, Tracy.
We call her Dean Whitley around here. So, I mean, we're still doing that really is amazing. That part of the pipeline, the Lexington, Boston. And don't you want to share what your job is right now, Tracy? Come on.
I will let you do that, because I know you hopefully will do it well, but it reinforces the whole situation.
She's the dean. The way I phrase it is she's the dean of the Harvard Law School. Is that accurate?
Quite correct? No, it's not correct. I am the dean for administration at Harvard Law School, but yes. So Boston has pulled me back again, although I am solidly footed in Kentucky. So, but the love and affection between these two wonderful locations is really cool stuff. And the place that Lexington is, I think, for those of you in Boston who haven't been to Kentucky yet, you got to get your butts down here, and you've got great hosts. We can't wait to see you. And when I get back up to Boston, I will be happy to host Kentucky people and Boston people. So
Yes, thank you.
And that's
Can I say
exactly.
something?
Oh, go ahead, Ellen.
Well, it was funny. As soon as you guys flipped on the share screen, my whole screen disappeared, so I didn't get to see the photos.
Oh no.
Which I know it was like everything disappeared.
It's weird.
And I was so excited because CD, I loved the poetry slams of Boston of the 90s.
Mhm.
And when I saw your face on the History Project advertisement, I'm like, oh my God, that's her. I just remember you from that scene and Outright and those amazing slam spaces. I have such fond memories of that creative space. I just want to say thank you. And I love thinking of that time period and that amazing energy.
It really was an amazing time period. And we got It was in the Slams, and then and my band played there at Riles, and yeah, it was fantastic. Thank you for mentioning that.
That
Yeah, so I think I was just gonna say, CD, I would love if you shared your second piece as sort of a closing to tonight. But before we sort of do that, I was just gonna say that sort of John and I, when we first met over Zoom, I like totally cold called, emailed, and was like, I didn't know that there was an LGBT archives in Kentucky. And we both got a Mellon grant to help us do the work that we're doing. And I was like, let's do something together. And as we started talking, we started seeing all of the connections between us. And so hopefully this will lead to some other online events while we're all online. And then someday we'll have who knows, a multi-state party of some kind.
Yes, we can
Welcome
come.
to the farm.
First.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's in person. Yeah.
Everybody can come to my farm, and we can camp, and everybody gets a kitten. Okay.
Who can say no? Yeah.
Exactly. Well, I had a piece planned that in case you wanted me to, and Tracy has a request. So we're going with Tracy's request. This is called The Vigilantes Advance. I'm going to read part 1. When I was 5, I stood in the front seat of the car while my mother speeded down country lanes and careened around blind curves on the wrong side of the road. She drove with one foot on the accelerator, the other on the brake, cup of coffee in one hand, cigarette in the other, and never once used a turn signal. At that time, the speed limit was 75, which Kentucky motorists regarded as a suggested average, even on the winding pikes, branches, runs, and levees. No one had ever heard of child restraints, designated drivers, or secondary smoke. Winter mornings, the Buick's interior filled with the mingling incense of filterless Pell-Mells and Chanel No. 5. The car climbed steep grades with the ease of a panther. Inside, my mother was like a beautiful wild animal too, with her untamed blonde hair and fox jacket. Unpredictable, preoccupied with missions I could scarcely comprehend. I regarded her from a distance, the dark brows above intent, violent eyes, the small, full mouth, never knowing when she might strike. The moment it was warm enough to drive with the top down, my mother and I took 20-mile detours home from shopping, topping the mountain crests and sailing into the lengthening dusk as we devoured light bread, spice drop candy, and entire quarts of blueberries. We'd pull into our driveway, blue-lipped and exhilarated, as the family dogs rushed the car, scratching its glossy red paint. The dogs were immensely relieved to see my mother, as though they'd been holding their breaths the whole time we'd been gone. I'd lose her then, to the dogs, to my father and brother whose faces appeared behind the screen door like gibbous moons. We'd unpack the groceries, fill the blue satin glass candy dish with the remaining spice drops, and make dinner. My mother's dogs, spoiled to the point of hysteria, followed her room to room with wet, fearful eyes, lest she escape again. They sat at her feet when she played the piano, singing as close to the melody as they could get. The family hierarchy positioned dogs far above cats, which were relegated to the outdoors. I find my kittens on the road, their eye roots bulged out like diced potatoes, then bury them in shoeboxes with creek rocks for headstones. My parents seemed to regard cats as having the loose morals of Locust Street floozies who shimmied up to men on bar stools down at Jose's, spelled Hozays. As punishment for their wanton reproduction, my parents drove my mama cats out into the country and dropped them off. It's not like my parents never visited Locust Street. I'd wait for my mother in the car outside Jose's while she went inside to look for my father. I stare at the sign for Kentucky Utilities, the neon man with the bolt of electricity in his hand who blinked on and off. Ready Kilowatt, your electric servant. I test how close I could get the cigarette lighter's red coil to my skin before it singed. It seemed like hours since my mother had gone in there, her derringer retrieved from the glove compartment and dropped into her purse, casually, like a roll of mints. At home, my brother and I listened to the continuing argument from the basement, where we read Archie comic books, smoked cigarettes, and sniffed gasoline from the lawnmower can. I trust that woman about as far as I can throw her, my mother shouted, which ain't very damn far. Their feet shifted back and forth above our heads. You're stepping out on me. Like hell, you are. Stop. You're both right, I found out later, after I'd moved away from home to the relative safety of inner city Boston. My parents divorced, my brother started his own family, and my mother turned the corner about cats. Now she's the one who takes in strays, naming them after men she considers strong-minded. Louis Farrakhan, Khomeini, and her favorite, Hussein, a black Persian she has nicknamed Hootie to avoid his being shot by the neighbors. Hootie, she calls out the back door. She'd found him by the side of the road with one of his little legs broken. Somebody must have thrown him out of their car, she says, as though she can hardly fathom such a thing.
Thank you.
And let's have a whoop whoop for the wonderful Lula Francis, CD's
Yes,
mama.
yes. Lula Francis, Tipton Collins, yes.
Who, by the way, when I went to go visit her for the first and only time I ever got to meet her, along with her smoking, she insisted that we have some Andre champagne and fireball shots about midday. Weekday, midday.
Yeah, it had to be Andre champagne. Yeah, nothing but the worst.
That's quite a lunch.
Yeah. Fireball whiskey, the cinnamon, chase it down.
Oh, goodness. Well, I'm going to close us out. Otherwise, we could be here all night and it would be a delight to be here. But it is a Thursday night and it's a school night. So it's time for us to pack it in. I just want to say, on behalf of Massachusetts, thank you so much, CD, for being here tonight with us. It was a pleasure to hear from you and to hear some of your stories. And we look forward to the upcoming book and the documentary and everything else, and the cats that are coming up to New England. I'll follow up with everyone who registered with some links to the History Project and Faulkner Morgan and to CD's website too, so you can keep tabs on them.
Can I say one final thought about the documentary?
Yes,
I had been filming all day, and Jean, and the crew's been up in Boston. They've been down here. They're fantastic. And so I was like, now, Jean, I don't know about releasing this film and all the gay stuff. And she's like, it's really none of your business. She's like, this is my film. And I was like, so relieved. I'm like, oh my God, it's not any of my business. That was so the right thing for her to say. So we'll see what the story is, because I don't know.
I'm sure it'll be great. Whatever it ends up being. John, do you have anything to leave us with?
Just to say thank you. Thank you to you, Joan. Thank you to CD, to Tracy. I saw a number of Faulkner Morgan folks here. A big shout out to Jill Raymond. I was very happy to see you. In fact, the University of Massachusetts, I believe, just published a book about Jill called The Lexington Six. So another connection right there. So thank you for such a wonderful evening. This has been a lot of fun.
There's a question in the chat where people who didn't come or who came in late, where they can access the recording. So can you just tell us?
Yeah, so I'll put it up on the History Project's YouTube, and then I can send a copy to Faulkner Morgan too, so you guys can put it
To the people
wherever
who
you put
registered.
it. Yeah. And a link will go up on our website too. So it'll be there, so that you can see it from the beginning. And and we'll have to talk more about the Lexington Six as our next collaboration.
Yeah.
So we'll what is it?
We'll
Whet your
tease it out.
appetite.
Yeah.
There we go. I don't have idioms anymore. It's too late. So yeah, so I'm gonna stop recording. Thank you all so much for being here tonight. Thank you again, CD, and thank you to our friends from Faulkner Morgan.
It's an honor. Thank you.